And a very good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel session, Aggregating OTT Apps and New Opportunities for Pay TV and Telcos. Joining us this morning on the panel are Frank Poppelsdorf, who is VP of Engineering at Aggregator, Peter Vassong, who is Head of TV Content Europe, Strategy and Partnerships for Deutsche Telekom, Diane Kodak, have I got that right? Head of Marketing and Sales for TV5 Mond, and Berk Aziel, CEO of SPI. Before we get underway with the panel proper, I'm going to ask everyone to just spend about 30 seconds or so quickly saying who they are, what they do. I'm sure you'll all know the companies, but some of them, such as Deutsche Telekom, quite large, got lots of things going on. And I think, Peter, if we start with you, your responsibility is Deutsche Telekom, but not actually in Germany.
Yeah, that's true. So at Deutsche Telekom, we define Europe as all European markets with the exception of the German incumbent business, so minus Germany. We operate pay TV in 8 European markets, which are Greece, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Austria, Croatia, North Macedonia, Montenegro. I hope I didn't miss anybody now. And we launched linear TV next year in Poland. So that's a very heterogeneous set of markets with significant differences in language, in GDP, in size. In these markets, we have approximately 4 million subscribers for pay TV across all different platforms, be it IPTV, cable, OTT, DTH, DTT, whatever. And I'm responsible for orchestrating the pan-European TV content activities.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Frank, to you next at Aggregator. Are you in Hoofddorp with us this morning?
Yes, actually, I'm in the office, unlike many others. So I'm actually in our headquarters in Hoofddorp, indeed. Normally, people will refer to as Amsterdam because it's better known. Yeah, and I'm responsible for the entire engineering department within Aggregator that has to do with video technology. And basically we have offices and people working across the globe, but most of it is actually in the Netherlands.
Okay, Diane, let's come to you next at TV5 Mond.
Hi, TV5 Mond. I handle the linear channel, the distribution, the marketing for the linear channel. Bit like Deutsche Telekom, we've got a different vision of Europe. So Europe for us extends from Lisbon to Moscow, including Ankara and Tel Aviv. We've kept Britain, but we got rid of France, Belgium, and Switzerland for our French-speaking countries. So it's the non-French-speaking countries in that large Europe that I look after for the linear channel. And since last year, we launched a non-demand offer, an app for which I supervise the marketing worldwide.
Yeah, thanks very much, Diane. Of course, the Eurovision Song Contest thinks that Australia is in Europe these days. How can Australia be in Europe and the UK not? Anyway, let's move to Berk at SPI. Tell us a little bit in a nutshell about SPI's many activities.
Hi, this is Berk Aziel. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of SPI International and also one of the co-owners. Greetings today from Herten, Netherlands. I am today in Netherlands. SPI currently runs 42 channels in 69 countries. We also have 6 streaming services in different territories. The company was founded a little over 28 years ago as a movie distribution company and then deployed its pay TV businesses all across different European countries, starting from Poland. And today we're active in different territories with both movie services, and also telenovela service as well. So I'm glad to be here.
Okay, thank you very much, Bert. Good to have you here too. Peter, let me start our sort of questions proper with you. I noticed you mentioned Poland there as a market you'll be going into shortly. I don't know how much you can tell us about that, but the OTT landscape in Europe right now, it's certainly a burgeoning one with more and more apps from more and more providers, big and small.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the markets we operate in, and that's mostly CE now, and plus Austria, plus Greece, I think the OTT landscape is an emerging one right now. So there's an interesting launch timeline next year with HBO Go turning to HBO Max, going D2C. We have Disney Plus with its long-awaited postponed launch. We have Sky Showtime coming up, the Comcast Viacom joint venture. And in that wake of the big fellas, we have the tier 2 operators also following. So we had Viaplay launching in Poland last year, as you mentioned, or this year, as you mentioned. We have Canal Plus also planning something, as I heard. I think the main issues from a market perspective is that these markets are very fragmented in terms of culture, language, purchasing power, GDP. You can take a plane from Skopje to Athens. It takes you 1 hour and you literally triple your GDP. Yeah, so it's very, very diverse. And language, example, Hungary, this language is totally different to all its Slavic neighbors. Yeah, so you also have different forms of localization. You have dubbing, you have voiceover, you have subtitles. So it's very difficult for regional players to use synergies in these markets. I think of Pickbox is the only one of the few examples I know that developed, for example, a pan-Balkan service. Yeah. From a customer perspective, I think that ad-spot stacking is not as much as advanced as it is in Western Europe. The prices for these services are more or less the same, but they are much higher in relation to the prices of the pay TV services. And I believe that the growth of ad-spot in the region, and there will be growth in the region, that comes from new ad-spot households mostly, and not so much from increasing number of services per household.
This is interesting because the problems you describe of the lower ARPU, lower average revenue per user between, say, in its simplest form between Western and Eastern Europe. I appreciate it's a bit more complicated than that. That's a problem which has been with us forever. Well, as good as forever. But now, if you have and price services have been near enough priced accordingly. But if you have a Disney, a Netflix, an Amazon, a whoever coming in and actually charging the same amount that they charge me here in Cambridge in the UK, logic suggests they're not going to get as many subscribers.
That's what I would think, yes. And you can't expect from customers having all services to all together.
Yeah. Frank, do you think that there is the demand out there from new OTT players and also the operators who are keen to bring them on board and, of course, aggregate them with their service, because they don't want anybody flipping over to their mobile phone and casting it to the screen. They want to keep everybody with them in their environment as often as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our experience is that the operators really want to differentiate because they want to keep more subscribers and get more subscribers. So what you really see, there's like 5 value differentiations for super aggregators, as we call them. And it's basically content is key, of course, but also the UI. So having a good set-top box that has a UI that combines both broadcast and all these OTT apps. And then you have the security part, the 360 security, making sure that everything is secure, which is important for the traditional broadcast signal, but also for all these apps, because all these premium apps want to have a platform that's really secure and make sure that their content is safe. But the other parts are also important, like insights in knowing what analytics are happening on the box and feeding that back to the operator. And of course, last but not least, whenever operators look at, they typically invest in an expensive set-top box that goes into the field. So they may want to make sure there's continuity, so that box stays secure and is good for these apps and the broadcast signal for a long time. So I'm talking about 5 years or even longer, to basically make sure that the investment can be recovered. And we really see that a lot of operators are going to this hybrid model because they realize that just their own content is not good enough. They want to own the HDMI one. So they want to make sure that people, when they watch Netflix, when they watch Disney Plus, they still go through their set-top box to their service, so they can basically cross, advertise all the content that they have.
And that's really when the UI, that you mentioned at the start of this becomes even more important, because viewers have been historically used to Channel 101. That's the BBC. Then along came on-demand services. And now there are services where the provider concerned wants their look and feel and not that of the operators. And so you don't want to lose or confuse the consumer, because otherwise they will make a different decision about that HDMI 1 socket.
Yeah, it's mostly about search, right? So if you search for a movie or a content, that you actually aggregate all of that content into one. So what you really want to make sure as an operator is that people go to your platform, if you will, and not get a second one. So that's really important, because that way you have some level of control over what's going on. The days are gone that you can prevent people going to apps, right? I mean, I mean, people will watch Netflix. They will watch Disney Plus. There's no point in trying to pretend like they will only watch your content. So the best you can do is move to open platforms where you can have all these applications together with your content, and make sure that you have good content yourself to make sure that the people still watch your content. And don't forget, there's always still live sports, live content that people still want to watch. It's not all about VOD content. There is still plenty of content that's really important to watch live for
the big live shows. I don't know, Dancing with the Stars, X Factor to a certain extent, and Masked Singer. That's the new one, which seems to be spreading across Europe faster than coronavirus. Is certainly proves that the viewers still like and enjoy live. Diane, you mentioned your app, which you're rolling out at the moment. What does that offer? What's the, if you like, the attractions to a super aggregator to make sure that TV5 Mond is in their collection?
I think, as you know, as Frank was saying, is about helping and accompanying our partners, the operators, to maintain the current audience and go and search for another one. The linear channel TV5 Monde has been around for 30 years, and last year we launched the app TV5 Monde Plus on demand. It's not all about on demand, as Frank was saying. There are some shows that still need to be consumed live, but also some people also want to carry on watching live. They don't, not everybody wants to go searching. Some like the laid back experience, and the success of Pluto shows it. So we work on a hybrid model. The app is a B2C, mostly for French speaking countries. But in CE and in the US, it's distributed through the operators as a complementary offer to your linear channel in other markets. And the idea is really to go and look for all those niche audience as a complement to what we currently offer and what the operators offer. As you were saying, the operators, they don't want the audience to flick to another service to go for their little passion, and you want to aggregate all the geeks. And that really is what this app offers, is for those who really want to feel their passion in their own time when they want, without having to go somewhere else. They comfortably, they've got their operator, they've got their habits, they've got their user experience that they used to, and they can just wander and get more of what they like and explore and discover new things. And that's
and when you're pitching to operators, are you going first of all to the ones who may already have been carrying the channel for many of those 30 years, or is it also opening up a few new avenues for you and reaching both operators and viewers that might not have previously considered TV5?
A bit of both, but in all fairness, in Europe, most operators already carry the channel. So in Europe, it really is a complement offer. In other territories like Asia, where it's, the channel's been there for less time, the app is a way to explore new markets and new operators. Here in Europe, it really is seen as a complementary offer. It's also a question of technical resources. The hybrid model Frank was talking about is a great opportunity, but it does require a lot of resources.
What does a good partnership between yourself and an operator look like?
Well, I guess we see the operators as an accelerator of accessibility for content, right? And in return, we allow them to work the long trail, reach out to a wider audience, explore more niche. So I think a fair partnership is really to increase the transparency in sharing the data of usage, the social data as well, to understand better our common audience and be able, the subscribers, and be able to cater for them the best offer, because that's the beauty of the app and of digital, is you can actually adjust as opposed to a pan-regional linear channel. And a fair partnership for me is this: transparency.
Do you think the emphasis has shifted? I guess maybe it always was transparency, but I wonder if the emphasis has shifted. Like, I know you wouldn't have put it like this, you put it far more elegantly. But if I'd asked you this question 20 years ago, your answer might have been a large carriage fee. But that now it seems to have moved much more towards information, maybe as a two-way traffic.
I think we'll get both. We'll still have the large carriage fee.
I won't ask you how much it will be, but can I bring you in here as well? I guess you're seeing similar things to Diane, but some of your channels, I'm thinking of perhaps the Dutch premium channels you operate, for example. Is it a slightly different play for you?
Actually, we currently work with approximately 700 different operators. And
wow.
B2B distribution has been at the heart and the core of our company. For example, we have been working with Peter and their incumbents for numerous years now, and we've been partnering together. And moreover, we're selling quite a few premium services through the operators as well. We positioned our premium channels as a home of good movies, therefore still work together with our operator partners in order to increase the ARPU, in order to sell more subscription, etc. And in light of those efforts, we started to integrate our apps and also do app distribution, digital distribution through our operator partners as well.
So you're integrating the apps so they can be found right there within the operator's environment and the UI that Frank was talking about earlier.
This is at the heart and the core of the SPI's distribution strategy, is to emphasize on distributing its digital services through its operator partners. So we've already integrated into the numerous operator set-top boxes. Our apps are seamlessly there. We're also integrating our apps and services with singles. We have different ways of integrating ourselves into the operators as well. And we positioned ourselves as a great neighboring service to the big streaming giants. And we think that the app bundles, subscription to numerous streaming services is going to be the reality of the new world. And we think that operators are going to take a big role in distributing these services in a bundled way. And now we've already started integrating ourselves, and we're going to do much more on this in the coming days. So for us, partners like Peter and important European players, important world players are still at a critical place in order to reach wide audiences together, and we're going to continue working in order to increase our joint ARPUs.
I find it very interesting, your answer, that you're not saying, oh, I've got all this content, here's my app, I'm going to go it alone and see you on an Android TV sometime soon. You're saying we still need the operators as part of your business.
So can I jump in here maybe?
Please do, Peter.
You were mentioning fair partnerships earlier. So actually one important element for a fair partnership for me, I think it's key to have a fair partnership, is that we share the risk. And usually OTTs always tell us, we invest so much into content. Yeah, so that's our big risk we are taking. But I think that's their core business. Yeah, so like fiber is for us. I mean, rolling out fiber, homes passed is not homes connected. So I think the risks have to be shared in the commercials of the deal then. So that's an important element also for a fair partnership from my perspective.
Mm. Well, what about the choice which, I don't know, some operators perhaps need to make between being a certain, I don't know which direction Deutsche Telekom has gone in, but of being the super aggregator who has all of those services we know so well, but maybe a couple of dozen more, the fitness apps, for example, some games, some very small niche sports. You know, the tennis channel or NBA. How do you make the judgment call between offering absolutely everything and offering that big content?
I think it is not a choice. I mean, depends on how you define super aggregation. Yeah, I think that's really much a buzzword now these days. For us, like for Frank earlier, I think super aggregation is for us having all the relevant content, really all the relevant content, local, international, in all phases, meaning linear, catch up, TVOD, exclusive, SVOD, partners, in one single UI, unified search, unified recommendation, and then across all own devices, stick, set-top box, mobile, all relevant platforms, smart TVs, to maximize the reach. And if you follow that logic, I think niche content or also owned content is a part of super aggregation. It's the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if what it is getting the big guys in first, because those are going to bring in potentially the mass audiences, even if they have to subscribe a little bit more to get them. And then you start thinking about the smaller ones in the same way that you would fill up the first couple of pages of your EPG in Germany, no doubt, with the ARD, ZDF, RTL, Sat.1 and all the rest of them, before you then start thinking about the Golf Channel or whatever it might be, a little bit lower down, because you know it's a niche.
Yeah.
Frank, is that a sort of scenario that you're seeing as well, whereas initially you got the call to do the integration of the big services, and now maybe you're being told that there's half a dozen smaller channels that need to be added in?
Yeah, no, what we see is that this is why, let's say, going for your own specific set-top box or application and what have you has kind of disappeared, and most operators are now looking to open platforms like Android TV, like RDK, because they actually because it is quite expensive to make an app for a specific platform, right? It's a lot of work. Again, security is important, but just the sheer porting of the UI, and as you mentioned before, the UI is really important for the apps, because if the UI doesn't work properly, then people will be put off and go somewhere else. So,
and I guess, and as you mentioned, RDK and I guess Android as well, for people like Burke, I think the figure he gave us was something like 700 operators, which he has to deal with. So actually having a couple of systems where it's pretty much the same, give or take, between one operator and another makes everybody's life a lot easier.
Makes a lot of difference. And so we're looking really at certifying platforms. So it really becomes easy for app developers to basically put their app onto the platform. So coming back to your question, that means basically it doesn't really matter. So once you've done, yes, of course, the first focus will be on the likes of Netflix, Disney, and all that. That's mostly has to do because they deeply integrate with security, because they really care about their content, but also making sure it's really robust. But once you have that, then basically it's open for any app, basically, whether it's niche or big or small, it doesn't matter. And then it's actually more of a matter of controlling which apps are on the platform and making sure you don't get malicious apps or apps that are, can basically crash your device. And then it becomes more about managing all of that and controlling that.
And is that easier? This business of people coming in and not doing a very good job. Is that easier for a cable operator, an IPTV platform, satellite operator to maintain those apps with their environment than it is, say, one of the big TV manufacturers who also seem to be getting in on the act of their own operating systems as well, but it's more for them, it's more of an open field?
No, it is easier for an pay TV operator, whether it's cable, satellite, doesn't matter, because especially when it comes to their set-top box, they have complete control. It's an operator environment. Even if it's Android TV or RDK, they have much more control than let's say a regular let's say, run-of-the-mill pure OTT Android TV box. So they can control which applications are there. And like I mentioned before, you have a lot of analytics that comes back, giving you that insight on what's actually going on in the box. It's also important, one thing to mention also, there's regulatory, in some parts of the world, it's also important that you can control which apps are on the box as well. So that control is really in the hands of the operator. But again, it's gone are the days where you go completely proprietary and a lockdown kind of box. So it has to be somewhat open, because otherwise the development time for apps will be just too long and too expensive.
And that was that thing, wasn't it? 2-3 years ago, pandemic has out of my brain as to remembering how time goes. But it was the there was the thing of bringing things to market so much more quickly that we'd seen in the past. I noticed we've got our first question, which I'll come to in a moment or two, because we've got some other questions which will fit in quite nicely. But if you wanted to ask something yourself, then please do so using the chat box on screen. But I wanted to ask Berk something in particular as to this idea of apps within bundles and app aggregation, where one app opens up into, I don't know, multiple channels, multiple services. The one that springs to mind for me is the BT Sport app in the UK. You may start off wanting to watch Premier League, but by the time you get there, you realize that BT2 is showing something else and their ESPN channel something else again, but all going in via that same app. Is that something, I guess, with the wide variety of channels that you have, Berk, this is something that you're involved with?
Actually, yes, we do have our apps in place, but we also have another digital distribution methodology, which we have both branded corners within the operators' applications and also supply them with linear channels as well. And we even actually integrate ourselves into different services like Amazon, to Rakuten, to Emitele in Spain, etc. So where the end users are able to discover our contents and services through different platforms as well. So the delivery and the methodology of distribution is definitely changing, and we're constantly evolving ourselves to adapt to them, basically.
What sort of issues are you encountering in integration of apps? Now, Frank told us about the advantages of RDK and Android. Presumably there are things which do get in the way from time to time.
So I think the main issue is the fragmentation. Each and every operator almost have a different set of requirements and an integration methodology to themselves. And there's a huge fragmentation in terms of the new set-top boxes as well. So integrating our apps into new services and the operators is quite resource heavy. And usually the big telco operators and the operators have limited resources, therefore are not capable of integrating each and every app. Nevertheless, we are kind of privileged to be one of the big players in the territories that we're active in. So we get exposure to the resources, but still, I think that is the biggest challenge for both us and the operators, that they need technical resources in order to be integrate as many apps as possible. And that's usually very time consuming, resource consuming, etc. I think that is the biggest challenge in front of us.
Interesting. I'll go to our, thank you, Berk. I'll go to our question now, who says, will sharing of user view analytics between content providers and operators be a prerequisite for a successful hybrid model in the years to come? And what challenges do we see here, such as our questioner gives an example of user confidentiality? I could ask a few of you of this one. I'll start off. Maybe Berk, do you want to come in on that one first? Then I'll go to Peter and Diane as well.
I'll give you one anecdote, and I'll then leave the floor to the rest of my colleagues here. About a couple of weeks ago, we launched a telenovela service in Spain, okay, with one of the operator partners, and basically we've deployed a numerous series together with them, and we have a certain data that we know what is watched most, etc., and so forth. And we've done the curation according to that. Nevertheless, when we started to receive the data from Spain in terms of the viewership, the results have dramatically surprised us, because some series that were popular in rest of the countries were not as popular in Spain, but some series that was not watched was the most popular one. So it actually drove the entire programming team to rethink the strategy to make sure we present more stuff to the viewers, which they might like according to that taste, etc. So getting that data and analyzing it in a proper way really helped us to curate the content and give the much better content proposition to the viewers. So I think in terms of the criticality and prerequisite, I think in order to give the right product proposition to the end user, having an access to that data is extremely critical. In terms of fitting in with the GDPR rules and obligations, that's a challenge. But is it a prerequisite? I definitely think so. That'll be my first-hand experience from the anecdote, which I can just I just told.
That's very interesting. You know, every once in a while, you get a US TV show, which is a complete disaster in the United States, but actually performs very well in Europe. I think one of the most famous examples of that is Baywatch, which I think there might have been some German money went in. There was certainly some from London weekend television here in the UK to keep it going. And you imagine it now, if there's a US show that gets cancelled halfway through the series, as they normally do, and then your data comes up and says, well, it's the most top performing show in Italy or something. I can imagine a few interesting phone calls taking place. Peter, I wonder if you have anything to add on that. You know, this issue of user confidentiality involved in the sharing of data.
That is not my area of expertise, to be honest.
Okay, wrong person to ask. I should come back to you in a moment. I don't know if anybody else wants to chip in on that in the meantime.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, this comes
Frank,
back
go
to
ahead.
what I said earlier about analytics, because it is crucial, right? And I think it was mentioned already, is like this gives a lot of insight. Just also which apps are being used mostly on your platform is already by itself also very interesting data, because it can also drive you in which content you want to spend more money on as an operator, if you know certain apps are really popular on the box. I mean, it even goes as far as knowing which piracy content is being shown on the box, right? So if a lot of people show interest for content that is really not available in your market, but they're looking using a Kodi app, using a plugin.
I noticed Roku the other day were closing up a bit of a loophole there, where people were sneaking in unofficial channels onto their platform. No more, if anybody listening is planning to try it, because Roku have shut that one with their latest update.
Yeah, so if that happens, but that gives you insight, right, as an operator. So maybe then you go and get it officially, so that actually, well, of course, you block the piracy, and there's ways of doing that. But then you should also offer it legitimately and basically drive that as well. So this analytics is really crucial for anyone's business. And look, can it be completely anonymized, right? So you don't need to specifically know that person A is watching this or that. You know, there's a way to make sure that you comply with the GDPR and everything like that as well.
Mm-hmm. I guess one of the things where metadata does come into play very importantly is within search and discovery. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, Peter. The making it as easier for the subscriber to find the content on the service.
I think this is a bit depending on how deep the partnership is defined. If you just have an app on the Google Play Store, an Android TV set-top box, I think it's very difficult to find it. And of course, which kind of access we get to metadata. I mean, let me give you an example from Telecom Germany, Magenta TV. They have a very deep integration of RTL Plus, which was called TV Now Premium in the past, but now turned to RTL Plus, into the UI of Magenta TV. So you have the full integration of content via the partner lanes or the home screen. You have the full VOD detail pages once you click on the content. And that is across all devices, set-top boxes, mobile, and sticks. Yeah. So there you have a very good way to find the content if you look for it. Yeah. So and also for the partner, a very good way to promote your content.
Yeah, so I guess, Diane, this is quite important for channels like TV5 Mon to make sure that that viewers are aware of what's there.
Indeed, it's and going back to the UI and the data, it's how it's important for us, but also, again, in a fair partnership for the operator, because it's allowing to find, at the end of the day, to allowing the user to find the content he wants without spending hours searching for it, and irrespective of the source of the content, whether it's on the linear, whether it's on the app, it doesn't matter. It has to be a very slick experience, a very easy one. And that's why the program metadata is fundamental. And as Peter was saying, having a strong integration with the operator. I think that's where voice recognition will also play a fundamental role in that respect, because the limitation of the Mando or when you're on your mobile phone. So for me, data, yes, I couldn't agree more. It's going to be the fundamental for a successful hybrid model, with all the functionalities of allowing the user to find this data in the usage, definitely.
And I guess something like universal search, which allows people to, in theory, find anything that happens to be on the platform is pretty fundamental, because if you are being that super aggregator and making all of the services available, that makes it even, the more straightforward, isn't it? The more services that you're adding in, the more difficult it becomes to find something, unless there is the means to surface content in some way, be that through past preferences or somebody in the marketing department picking out their top shows.
Yeah, and it's going back to the curation. That's why we, as a content editor, need that feedback, because in order, as you said, to push that content and pick the right show, we need to have the consumer, the usage. It's not just what works best to have that great surprise that Bert, you were mentioning. It's happened to us as well, but it's also understanding the recurrence. How many times do people come back to the app, to a certain program, to understand whether the usage is just a pick and choose, or whether you create that stickiness, which at the end of the day for the operator is so important as well, to make sure that the subscriber doesn't just go away after a while. Stickiness, I think, is fundamental. And that's where, on top of universal search, you also need in the integration to have those means to, once you've got the data of usage and social, on the program and the social usage, you can push and promote your content for the benefit of both.
Do you then, does that require you as a channel to have an ongoing dialogue with an operator to say, got this great show coming up, documentary on, I don't know, French wine for the sake of argument, and we think that it's a special show because, or do you sometimes actually have that written into the contract that for a couple of times a year, perhaps, you get the opportunity to push something a little bit more than would otherwise be the case?
Well, unlike SPI, we obviously are a much smaller player, so we integrate it in the contract, and we agree to have three or four times a year a way to promote our content, and then it's our job to know which content we're going to push, and that's our expertise,
Yes.
But I guess for Burke it might be slightly different.
Yeah, Burke, do you have maybe some slightly contrasting examples to that, perhaps?
Actually, our situation is, yes, it is a little different, but we do a very micro account management with all the platform partners of ours. So in most of the cases, we create joint strategies on what to promote, what to come in front. And since we're also selling quite a bit of premium subscribers together, it's actually, the vision is how we're going to reach to more subscribers, how we're going to do more app sales and the service sales. So our situation, our positioning is a little bit different on that side, and we usually decide on promoting things together with them, with the idea of reaching a better ARPU, going to more subscribers, reaching better viewership and audiences.
And I guess one of the things, because you've got, hopefully, you were talking to us about earlier, because you've got that metadata and additional information, you could, I don't know, run a split campaign and promote one show to one set of subscribers and then another set to somebody else.
Yes, I think we have been basically the content discovery and content finding and basically presenting the right content to the right user is extremely important. So deep linking, utilizing the new technologies, etc., is extremely important. On another note, this is kind of the lean front experience, but also we see that in many of the digital streaming services, the lean back experience also is gaining a lot of momentum and importance as well. People are constantly making selections and choices in the streaming services where they also like, and it's a very interesting data in the streaming services that we launched with the operators, and in even with the big services like Amazon, etc. We see that the linear consumption is almost 50% of the on-demand consumption of our product as well. So we, yes, content discovery, metadata, these are very important, but we also think, and we're going to continue emphasizing, the lean back experience is also something that we would continue dwelling upon and continue marketing and selling actively.
That's interesting. Peter, I guess it is, people forget, and these days of being able to summon up channels on a telephone or a tablet, when it comes down to it, there is the ability to see those apps, which kind of takes us back to our topic of aggregating all of those apps. There is a lot to be said for that lean back experience.
Was that a question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it is something very much which I guess the Deutsche Telekom, amongst others, will be keeping an eye on to make sure that the apps create that engagement.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in the end, we want to entertain our customers. Yeah, so that's all about that.
And I just want to piggyback on that one. We're sharing experience in the UK. We've noticed that since we've launched the app, actually it's increased the audience of the linear channel, because people do appreciate having the choice and do want sometimes, to go and discover new things and search for it. But it also reinforces the lean back experience. It's a virtual circle. So by all means, linear channels, are going to stay, and I think they will feed themselves also from the app world. Definitely.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, doesn't it, as to the whether some apps will actually force operators to launch a linear channel. It could happen. Right, we've got a couple of minutes left, so quickly, very quick answers. I want to try and find out what's the next big thing from everybody. Diane, you're on the screen, so what innovation do you think is on the way?
I think it's innovation regarding the metadata and all that universal search and voice recognition, everything that will allow the consumer to find what they want in a much easier way, whatever the source.
Thank you, Berg.
For us, the next, hopefully, next big thing is we've recently announced that we're merging forces with Canal Plus. Therefore, a new era is starting for us.
Ah, yes, French movie channel launching soon.
Therefore, that is for us. That is important because we're going to be also utilizing, upon the approval of the governing bodies, we're going to be utilizing a new infrastructure as well, which is going to basically emphasize on more content discovery, lean back experience, reaching more to clients together through our operator partners as well.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. Sorry to cut everybody short. Peter, what's on the way?
For us, the next big thing is, of course, launching linear TV in Poland. That's our big thing.
Of course. And finally, Frank, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, for us, what we really see, things are going full circle. Same with the linear, right? So people want to consume live content more again. Same with security. So the content the money spent on content today is massive. And even the OTT app providers want to monetize that. So they want to make sure that piracy is kept to the bare minimum. So I think you will see more focus also from the OTT players regarding security.
Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. I'm not quite sure what happens if I run over time. I'm assuming we possibly just get cut off, but I'll draw things to a close now. Peter, Frank, Diane, and Burke, thank you all very much for taking part in this panel this morning, and I'll be back with you a little later on.
Thank you.
Thank you.